Hi, I'm Linda Quinlan.
I'm Keith Ghostland.
I'm Ann Charles. Welcome to All Things LGBTQ. It's Tuesday, April 24th, and we have a lot of news for you this evening. Linda, let's start with your headlines.
All righty then.
Oh, it's going to be one of them nights.
I have a story about Amazon. Senate confirms anti-LGBT Jim Bridenstine as NASA chief. The Human Rights Committee gives him a 0 rating. Greenwich Village, high-profile U.S. gay rights lawyer and environmentalist. The most dangerous woman in America.
Is she at this table?
She is right at the end. Right at the end. Tinderbox, the untold story of a New Orleans gay bar. Republicans try to pass a bill making it illegal for gay people to adopt. The Senate confirms climate denier and homophobe, head of NSA. There'll be more about him. Teacher forced to leave small town in Kansas. Youth who were questioning their sexual identity were 3 times more likely to report suicidal thoughts if they were religious. Conservatives want Cory Booker to resign. Christian conservatives are shifting focus from educational obscenity exemptions to stop anti-bullying and sex ed programs. Video of fraternity members at Syracuse University. Former Miss America, Deidre Downs, marries her girlfriend at the Birmingham Museum of Arts. We have a picture of her. Miss Downs, former Miss Alabama, marries attorney Abbott Jones. And lastly, Rachel Weisz wants to bring Disobedience's female sexual agency to the big screen.
Gives a whole new meaning to Orangeman for Syracuse.
Yes.
Recent study, transgender men, HIV positive, they're really not getting care. Toronto, the count's at 8 and is still expected to rise. We have updates from New Hampshire and Maine about legislation, and then a very unfortunate incident in Massachusetts where the husband of a state senator has been charged with sexual assault. The Me Too apparently is us too. So here in Vermont, there could be a change in a name and a change in the focus. Stay tuned. Federal Department of Justice. Apparently they don't like our fair and impartial policing policies. And they haven't gone home yet. So I'm going to be talking about some legislation. And our trivia question. Christine Holquist is the first transgender woman to run for governor in the U.S. Is she the first transgender person to run for a statewide office in Vermont?
I'm not going to say because now I know.
Okay, I'd like to take us to the Arab world and show you a clip called No Longer Alone. For my next segment, I'd like to talk about the gay vulture dads from the Amsterdam Zoo and their offspring.
They were so
Amsterdam,
cute.
that explains it.
China's Sine Weibo, which is the Chinese Twitter, backtracks the LGBT content ban after outrage. Trinidad and Tobago court says laws barring gay sex entirely are unconstitutional. Then my last segment features stories I'm not going to get to, but let me tell you the headlines. Lesbian litigants in the Cayman Islands are suing for same-sex marriage, and I have a picture before you of the 2 litigants. They are Chantel Day on the right and fiancée Vicky Chantel Day on the left. Transgender voter numbers double in India, and I have a picture before you now of the campaign featuring transgender people trying to get out the vote and succeeding. Finally, 2 more schools for transgender persons are about to open in Pakistan. So those are my headlines. Now let's turn to Linda with the national news.
Let's try.
Yeah, let's turn to Linda.
All right. There's a story about Amazon, and you know everybody knows that Amazon is looking for a new home for its. No, unfortunately, I wish it was.
Oh, I don't know, I'm
Burlington.
ambivalent about Amazon.
But anyway, they're looking for a new home for their second headquarters, and also the founder, what's his name, Jeff Bezos. He also bought the Washington Post. Did anybody know? Everybody knew that.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Anyway,
45 in particular knows that.
I know, huh? And they checked out North Carolina, and he asked pointed questions of Governor Roy Cooper, namely about the bathroom bill. And an Amazon executive was heard to groan at the mention of proposed legislation that would restrict funding for same-sex adoption. So they're raising social issues, and apparently they're going to go with, a city that is
More inclusive.
LGBTQ. Also, which really kind of pisses off Trump and others, they exclusively use the U.S. Postal Service for their mailing, and they do not use UPS or FedEx. So that was kind of interesting. U.S. judge in Seattle has ordered President Donald Trump not to ban transgender troops from serving in the military, saying it's unclear whether recent changes to his administration's policy are constitutional. U.S. District Judge Marsha Peachman was one of 4 judges nationwide who blocked Trump last year from overturning an Obama-era directive allowing transgender troops to serve openly. The Justice Department asked her to dissolve that ruling, citing changes that would allow transgender troops to serve in limited cases. Because the changes were announced just last month, the sides had not time to argue whether the policy is discriminatory or whether the military is entitled to set its own policy. Given its expertise and what's needed for national defense, Peachman said in an order Friday she told the parties to prepare for a trial. So that will be coming up. And in Greenwich Village, they had a celebration for the late Edie Windsor. And she was honored with a plaque outside her longtime Greenwich Village home in recognition of her years of activism for the LGBT community and her pioneering role in achieving marriage equality. Windsor is best known for suing the U.S. government in 2010 after the death of her spouse, Thea Spire. Windsor, the sole inheritor of Spire's estate, was hit with a massive tax bill, one that wouldn't have applied to a heterosexual couple in the same circumstances. Windsor took her case to court and won, moving the U.S. Supreme Court to declare a section of the Defense of Marriage Act unconstitutional. So if you're in New York, Ann and I are planning on, when we're in New York,
She lived at 2 Fifth Avenue in the Village.
we're going to look her up, and we're going to look at the plaque.
That's right.
And have your picture taken?
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah, yeah. High-profile U.S. rights lawyer and environmental advocate David Buckell, 60, dies in a public park in a grisly protest against human destruction of the planet. His child remains were found after sunrise on Sunday in Prospect Park, Brooklyn, New York. Hours before his death, he emailed a copy of his suicide note to several media outlets. In it, he urged the world's residents to protect the planet. Pollution ravages our planet, oozing inhabitability via air, soil, water, and weather, he wrote. Most humans on the planet now breathe polluted air by fossil fuels. So that was a pretty dramatic statement, and I hope people get the message. I'm not sure they will, but
Reminds me of the Buddhist monks during the Vietnamese
Yeah.
War and their protest.
So, on to you.
On that cherry note,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. So as Vermont is debating about the need for a primary care network, there was a study that was released, and the 45s administration is looking at rolling back protections for the transgender community in health care. There's a study that was released about HIV-positive transgender men that found that 69% are not getting adequate treatment. And it's by virtue of socioeconomic challenges and suboptimal health care. One of the things that was cited is there have been no trans-specific studies done relative to HIV and the treatment of HIV. The most fundamental of being the interaction of PrEP, which we've talked about on previous shows, the prophylactic treatment for HIV, and how it may interact or not interact so well with HART, which is hormone replacement therapy. So that even if you were taking treatment, it may not be effective and the dose may need to be regulated because of your adjunct therapies. And they have not even done research on that. So, Toronto, we're at 8 and still counting. They've identified 2 more people who they're associating with the serial killer who is in custody and charged with first-degree murder. The most recent one brings up a very interesting problem in Canada that is not that dissimilar to what's happening in the US. This 8th person who has been identified has been missing since 2015. But the reason it took so long is because he was on a temporary visa from Sri Lanka where he had come as on refugee status. So he was uncertain about receiving permanent status, so he had gone to ground. So he was sort of out of the public view before he was truly out of the public view, which made it even more difficult, which has highlighted more problems of which we were kind of unaware. Updates from New Hampshire and Maine. New Hampshire, they've passed their ban on conversion therapy, but now it's in the conference committee because there was language that was different between the House and the Senate. We know what that's like here. Pay attention when I come to Vermont legislation. They also have a gender identity non-discrimination bill that's passed their House, and they're kind of waiting for their Senate to decide they want to do something about it. And they voted this down during the last session. So this is their second try at this. And in Maine, Maine was that place that was working on the ban on conversion therapy, and they were having fun with, electroshock and hydrotherapy and waterboarding, and that's probably not a good thing, but talk therapy we could do. The Christian Civics League is opposing this bill because, well, why wouldn't we want people to deal with that adverse, undesired same-sex attraction? And it takes away parents' constitutional right
I didn't know they had one.
to make decisions for their children.
All right.
But here was the spin.
Where's it written?
Well, no, here's the spin about Maine. It's in Maine's statutes that their legislature adjourns on the 3rd Wednesday in April. End of game. And the Democratic-controlled House had all kinds of bills that they kept tabling because they wanted to extend the session, and they thought by tabling bills that the Republican minority would go along with them and vote to extend the session. And the Republicans said, if you're not going to be actively working on legislation that we could be resolving, we're not voting to extend the session. And guess what?
SOL.
They didn't vote to extend the session, so the conversion therapy bill, their Medicaid expansion bill, and a lot of other healthcare funding bills were left on the table, and nobody's really sure what's going to happen with them.
Oh, jeez.
They may need to start all over.
So what were they thinking? I mean, well, I don't know. Who knows?
It was a political maneuver.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of those, I'm in the majority, let's see
It
what I
didn't
can
work.
do, let's play with the rules. And it backfired. So do you have some fun stuff?
So let's hear from the, what is it?
The
Arab
vultures?
world?
The vultures.
Not yet.
Not yet,
Oh.
okay.
First, I have a clip called No Longer Alone, Voices of Arab Activists. And I'm showing it primarily to refute the canard that homosexuals don't exist in certain countries. I remember reading What is the What?, the novel by Dave Eggers in 2006 about the Lost Boys of Sudan, in which it is asserted by the character on whom the novel is based that there are no LGBT people in the Sudan. That is patently false. And, you know, we all know this, but I'd like to show you a clip now called No Longer Alone, Voices of Arab Activists.
مرحبا، اسمي خالد عبد الهادي.
اسمي ستاف.
أنا اسمي إلي.
أنا اسمي داليا.
اسمي حمد سنو، بعمل موسيقى، بغني بفرقة اسمها مشروع ليلى بلبنان، وأنا كوير.
أنا بعرف عن حالي كرجل مثلي.
توجهي الجنسي في المطلق ما أحبش أصنف نفسي، بس أنا مثلية.
I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a grandson, I'm an actor, and I'm gay.
لما كنت كتير صغير، عمر 5-6 سنوات، كنت أعرف إنه في الموضوع بالنسبة لي مختلف شوي.
بتذكر كتير منيح اللحظة على هالوين، فكانت أول مرة أنا كنت بلبس تنورة أختي وبتحط لي مام ميك اب على وجهي شوي ناعم. بعدها لهلا بس أطلع بالصور بتذكر هيداك النهار قديش أنا كنت مبسوطة فيه وقد ايه كنت مرتاحة.
طلعت على الانترنت وصرت فتش وفتش وفتش وفتش، ولقيت جروب فيه كمية يعني من البنات موجودين وسودانيات، فكتبت انتوا وين يا جماعة؟ لا أنا ما براي في العالم، في ناس كتير شبهي، كنت سعيدة جدا. أعتقد إنه اليوم ذاك أنا ما نمت من السعادة. أنا بجي من عائلة شوي كونزرفاتيف، مش شوي كتير. فكان في هيك الدين كتير موجود بحياتنا. أول فكرة فكرت فيها إنه الله شو رح يقول؟
هي رحلة. معتقداتي كانت تتعارض كلياً مع كياني، مع كوني شخص مثلي أو بيميل للإناث.
كأنه مسخ، في شيء كلياً غلط بفكرة وجودي، حتى بفكرة إنه ما هيك أنت، كانوا كتير ناس يتمسخروا علي، كتير ناس يضربوني. كنت حس حالي لحالي.
كنت لما بمشي بالشارع كانت كل الناس بتضحك علي، بتصير تنادي علي بأصوات عالية إنه يا زلمة، يا اللي مسترجلة.
لا تسوي هيك لأنه هذا سلوك النسوان، عيب رجال يسوي هيك.
تعرضت لعنف جسدي أنا ومجموعة من الأصدقاء، كان يعني أغلبنا كان شكله مختلف أو باين عليه إنه هو من مجتمع الميم.
تو دوني الراقي دي فوا كان يضربني إذا ما في مال، ça m'a fait trop mal. ويقولها اخرجي اون ديريك il y a une femme à l'intérieur لازم يخرجها. دونك يقعد يضرب منا حتى الصباح، نقعد انا حاجه ما حتتبدل.
كنت في الاول ملي مضاربه مع راسي، ما حاملاش راسي، كنحاول انني نبدل راسي. فهو في الحقيقه انا ما اختاريتش، انا ما قدرش نبدل.
ما كنت افهم بوقتها انه هيدا الشيء مش غلط فيه، انه هيدا الشيء غلط بالناس اللي حوالي.
مرات في ناس بتقول انه بتاخد كتير شجاعة هذه الشغلة، بس هي اكثر بتاخد، حسيت انا بتاخد اكثر انه جلد.
يعني معظم الناس ما يعرفوا حتى شو كلمة مثلية الجنس معناتها، فبيقولون أشياء مثل لوطي أو مو طبيعي أو هيك، وأنت شغلتك بس إنه بكل هدوء وبتوازن تشرح لهم الموضوع. إذا فهموا وتفتح مخهم خلاص، إذا ما صار تمشي عنهم.
بعتقد لما يصيروا يقولوا انه صار جلدي تخين، أكثر ما سمعت اشياء وأكثر ما قطعت باشياء بحياتي، يعني خلص صار مثل نقطة المي بتجي علي وبتنزل.
ما كنتش كنظن بلي غادي نقدر يجي واحد النهار وتكون عندي القدره والقوه باش زعما نجاهر المجتمع ونقول ليه انا مثلي وبغيتي ولا ما بغيتيش.
فوقتها أخذت راحتي شوي، وبعد فترة حكيت لواحد من أعز أصدقائي بالمدرسة، كان قلت له أنا مثلي. قال لي مستحيل، ما بصدق. بعدين بعد فترة يقول لي صراحة أنا بحبك زي ما أنت، ما بيهمني إيش أنت. قلت له أوكي تمام.
أبويا اللي كان ضدي في كل حاجة يتحول من جانب الكراهية لجانب التقبل والتسامح، وإنه يقبلني كبنت ويحبني حب غير مشروط. ده بالنسبة لي كان معجزة.
وحسيت كأنه حدا شيل عبء هائل عني، حتى بس بيني وبين نفسي إني أقدر أتقبل هيدا الشيء. ساعدني ما بعرف أتقبل كل شيء، أتقبل حياتي، أتقبل إني شخص بيستاهل السعادة وبيستاهل الحب وبيستاهل الوجود وبيستاهل الحقوق.
أنا بديت أنتحر للحظة أنا هسه أهلي يعرفون نوعاً ما ويحبوني يتقبلوني. فالتغيير يحتاج لوقت، مو بسهولة يجي، بس أصبر. وأنت مو بوحدك، إحنا وياك، ورح تكتشف هواية ناس مغايرين ومثليين ومزدوجين ميول حيكونون وياك، ما رح تكون ببعدك.
شو بدي أقول للبنات اللي ليزبيانز أو كوير أو بايسكشوال أو شو ما تحس أو بينجذبوا للبنات؟ أول شي بدي أبعث لكم قلب وإنه إذا هن مش عاجبهم أنت شو هن الغلط.
أنت مثلي، هذا ماشي مرض، أنت ماشي ضد الدين، أنت ماشي ضد الإسلام، أنت ماشي ضد التقاليد، أنت ماشي ضد الدولة أو ضد العائلة ديالك.
في الطريق متاع التعرف إلى الذات ولا تقبل الذات، الوقت اللي تعطيه الراحة يخليك تشوف قديش أنت محلك.
أنا إنسان مثلي مثلكم وعندي حقوقي وراح أدافع على حقوقي.
صعب هذا الشيء خاصة لما نكون بعدنا صغار بالعمر، وبيضله صعب بس بيصير أسهل.
That was a good clip, Ian.
It's very informative.
I enjoyed it.
I like it because it's positive,
Yeah.
about finding your own community.
Yeah.
So now you're going to tell me about
I'm going to
Miss
tell
America?
you the most dangerous woman in
Ah.
America first.
Okay.
Watch
And
out.
on the same day that Barbara Bush died, another woman died. Her name was Donna Redwood. The Christian right called her the most dangerous woman in America. She was an in-your-face advocate for LGBTQ rights. It is impossible to gauge how much fear the Christian right has for the LGBTQ people, she said. That they should have the same rights as us is unthinkable. The religious right has renamed their fear religious liberty. So, rest in
68.
peace. 68.
Lung
yep.
cancer.
Tinderbox, the untold story of New Orleans gay bar, is the history of a 1973 fire at a New Orleans gay club. The upstairs lounge was set on fire by a patron who had a fight there and poured lighter fluid on the stairs and set it ablaze. And there was no other way to really get out except through the front door, which had been set on fire. And 32 people lost their lives in that fire.
Who wrote the book?
I don't have it here.
Oh, okay.
Do you know?
Do you know? I
No.
can't remember the name. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You should have known she was going to ask.
I know, she always does that. You know, every little detail.
Oh, stop. All right.
You'll look it up, okay. And then we have the homophobe, Jim Bridenstine, and, you know, he's among the deplorables of Trump. He opposed marriage equality. His state of Oklahoma, he stood against marriage equality. He called Obama's guidelines for transgender students in school bullying by the federal government. He lashed out at the Boy Scouts for crumbling under pressure from those left-wing bullies. So this is their new tactic now. You know,
We're bullies.
We're bullies, yeah. We're just trying to...
Weren't you a lesbian terrorist several shows ago?
Yeah. You know, we're trying to bully our agenda.
Through.
You know, so... And teacher was forced to leave a small town in Kansas because his life was threatened. Michael Hill was a visual art teacher in Seneca, Kansas. And a person kept sending him letters over and over again about that he shouldn't be teaching children, he's not welcome in the schools. Authorities weren't able to find this person who was sending these letters. He asked for some time off from school as a teacher because he was really scared. And then after, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks, they said you either put up or shut up, you come back, you quit. So he quit and he moved to Palm Springs. So that's not so bad. I mean, it's bad, but Palm Springs is. Conservatives want Cory Booker to resign.
Just Cory?
Huh?
Just Cory?
Just Cory.
All right.
Because he asked a Trump nominee if being gay is a perversion. Apparently, that means he hates Christians.
And Mike Pompeo still has been recommended to the Senate for vote. It was Mike Pompeo, remember that?
Yeah.
Rand
And then
Paul
there was
changed
that
his
horrible video from a fraternity members of Syracuse University. Terrible. I'm not even going to I can't even say the words that were in that video, but it was hateful towards the usual suspects and the usual people in that group. It was just horrible. And lastly, former Miss America, Deidre Downs, marries her girlfriend at the Birmingham Museum of Art. And there's a picture here of them going down the aisle with the rice and everything. So there we go.
May I just add something?
Oh.
The title of the book is Tinderbox,
Right.
The Untold Story of
I got that part.
Of the Upstairs Lounge
Right.
Fire
Right.
and the Rise of Gay Liberation by
Right.
Robert Feisler.
Thank you.
F-I-E-S-S-L-E-R.
All right.
Great pleasure.
I'm glad to know that. Thank you.
So, change in name, change in focus. I'm told that Vermont Gay Social Alternatives is looking at renaming themselves Out in 802 and are reportedly making a concerted effort to, if you're a woman who is a member of our community, we would really like to know what social events you would be interested in attending.
And they have a lot of
they're
really good
sincere.
events.
And they're trying.
Yeah.
The feds don't like our fair and impartial policing policies. They are requiring that Vermont supply more documentation that shows that we are in compliance with federal statutes. And someone in this room may have been asked to help advise on fair and impartial policing, and I hope Linda will do a good job.
Ha, he's joking. We know who it is.
And Vermont legislation, really quickly, paid family leave is in the Senate Economic Development Committee, but within the next 2 weeks, it has to make it out of economic development into appropriations, into finance, and then if they make any changes, the House concur, good luck. Salary history has passed. It's going to the governor for signature. Remember that gender-neutral bathroom bill?
Yes.
It's finally on its way to the governor for signature.
Yay.
And we're hoping there'll be a public signing ceremony. Parentage bill, I've got concerns. The House refused to concur with the Senate amendments. There was supposed to be a conference committee that will be held at a date determined by the Senate. That was a week and a half ago, and a date is yet to be set. So I've got concerns. The same as I have concerns about the Ethnic Studies Curriculum Standards Committee. The bill coming out of the House was supposed to be attached to a Senate bill in the House Education Committee. All of a sudden, it's dropped off their hearing list. And it may have been after a presentation by the Agency of Education where they thought white men of European descent should be included in that list of people about whom you were teaching and you needed their input. Personally, I didn't think that was a problem. Minimum wage is in the House General Housing and Military Affairs, but it also has to make it through appropriations. And again, 2 weeks before they think they're going to adjourn.
We could be Maine, because they won't get everything through in time.
And it's still left on the table.
Yeah.
But in Vermont, it's not the same mechanism by which to extend the session. There is not an automatic cutoff date. And leadership in both the House and the Senate can say, no, 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 we need more time. They can extend the session. They can send actually everyone home other than the specific committee members on the bills that they want resolved, and then bring everyone back when they're ready for a vote. So Vermont would be in a much better place.
Good.
But the bill would have to be determined as a priority.
Now it's time to move to Amsterdam.
Oh, the vulture!
That's right.
You can see where our interests lie.
Certainly mine. Artist Amsterdam Royal Zoo has just released a griffon vulture in Sardinia as part of the conservation program. Now, this is not any vulture. Zookeeper Job Van Tol said that the pair of male vultures who raised this chick, and we have a picture of the chick before you.
Of course we do.
Of course we do. That's right. Pretty cute. Huh? I don't know its gender. Anyway, the male vultures who raised this chick were a very tight couple, according to the zookeeper. We've had them for some years. They always build a nest together, bond, and mate together. After they cared for the chick for about a year, because I reported on this last May, it was taken to an aviary in Sardinia to get used to the warmer weather, and then it was released into the wild. So the headline is, the dads did a very good job. The Conservation Project has released 12 griffon vultures so far on the island that researchers estimate is home to only 30 pairs of vultures. And the downside is, according to the BBC, vultures were almost wiped out in Europe in the 1970s because farmers poisoned them.
Oh, DDT, yeah.
But now they're regenerating, and the gay vulture dads have contributed to this effort.
Adoption reform.
China's Twitter network has backed down under protest. The social media network has backtracked from a controversial gay content ban after a massive outcry. Last Friday, the microblogging platform said that posts related to homosexuality would be taken down. That prompted a deluge of posts from outraged netizens, a new word for me, protesting against the decision.
What's a netizen?
Well,
she'll tell you.
Okay.
Well, no, I assume.
Protesters?
No, network members of the network community.
Oh, network citizens.
Netizens, yes.
Ah.
All right. Oh, and let's talk about some of them and look at some of them. Over the weekend, many in the LGBTQ community took to the network to protest against the decision, using hashtags such as I am gay and scumbag Sina, hello, I am gay. Among them was lesbian rights activist Poo Chun Mei, whose impassioned post, accompanied with pictures of her gay son, quickly went viral. And we have a picture of her and her son, and
Are these all Chinese?
Yes,
people?
it's all in China. My son and I love our country. We are proud to be Chinese, she said. But today I saw the announcement by Sina Weibo as a source of news. It is discriminating and attacking minorities. This is violence. So they unfolded the ban on Friday as of early Monday morning. The deluge of posts were still online because the censors couldn't keep up with the volume. Then Sina Weibo made another announcement. It said its cleanup would no longer apply to homosexual content.
Is that like their Facebook?
Yeah, it's more
Twitter.
widespread. It's like
Yeah.
Twitter.
Okay.
So, good. Power, the people have spoken in
Yes.
China. Trinidad and Tobago have seen a law barring gay sex be ruled unconstitutional. In the ruling on Thursday, a judge said sections of the Sexual Offenses Act between two men criminalized consensual same-sex activity between adults and were unconstitutional. The decision followed a similar ruling in Belize in 2016. Outright Action said with positive rulings in Belize and Trinidad and Tobago, the movement will carry the momentum to other parts of the region. There was a celebration in front of Parliament. The downside is 3 vocal celebrators were evicted from their apartments, and a couple of people were beaten up who were seen publicly celebrating this decision. So it may take Trinidad and Tobago a while to get used to it, but and there's a backlash. But all in all, good news from Trinidad and Tobago.
Change is coming.
Good.
That's right.
Because we
you,
need some
Ann.
place to go now that we can't go to Bermuda.
Now we have
Yes.
trivia.
No, we have an
No.
interview.
Oh, we have the interview.
I know, Linda. You
Sorry.
anticipate. I had a lovely conversation with Bill Lippert, senator from Heinsberg, who is featured.
Representative.
Pardon me?
Representative.
My apologies. Representative Lippert, who's pictured in the intro with Howard Dean. You may observe him there, and you may observe him right now in this interview. Hi, I'm here with Representative Bill Lippert from Heinsberg, who is, I could say, a towering figure in LGBTQ history in Vermont. Thank you for joining us.
Delighted to be here.
Since this is your first appearance on this show, I thought we might go over some biography. I know that most of the viewers probably know your history, but if I may, you moved here to Vermont in 1972.
Yes.
You worked in the mental health field for about 10 years, is that
Actually,
right?
about 20 plus years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, community mental health in Addison County.
And then you were founder of the Samara Fund in 1992, and you worked there for a while.
Yes, I did.
Before your appointment. You were appointed in 1992 to the state legislature, is that right?
I was actually appointed.
I'm sorry, 94.
94, yes. Governor Howard Dean appointed me in 1994, and I continued for 2 years as the executive director of the Counseling Service of Addison County, while also serving my first term in the House of Representatives. And then after that, I retired from that work and eventually worked part-time as the executive director of what then was the Samara Foundation of Vermont, and did some other consulting work as, at one point I was the interim executive director of the Lund Family Center and worked for Spectrum Youth and Family Services. Variety of, it's Vermont, so a variety of things.
And you're in your 12th term now, is that right?
I am. This is because I was appointed, I think this is actually my 25th year in the legislature. Yeah.
So you must know the workings very well.
I do, I have to say.
You were also involved in the founding of Outright. In fact, the first time I met you, I think, was when I was on the board of Outright, and they initiated the Bill Lippert Award, which has been, you were the first recipient, and it's been thriving ever since that.
Yeah.
So I guess we should, everybody knows what these groups are, but maybe we should just give a rundown of the Samara Fund and Outright.
Yeah. Well, the Samara Foundation of Vermont has evolved into the Samara Fund of the Vermont Community Foundation, which is, of course, a large community foundation all across the state. And the Samara Fund is committed to social change in support of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender communities of Vermont. We established it first as an independent, freestanding foundation with support from the Vermont Community Foundation, And then over a period of time, the board of directors made the decision that it was the time in the evolution of the foundation to become a formal fund, and it became the Samara Fund of the Vermont Community Foundation.
I see. And that's thriving?
Yes, the Samara Foundation and the Samara Fund have given well over $500,000 in grants to various groups around the state of Vermont over the years since 1992 when it was first founded. And there's now an advisory board to the Samara Fund. And in addition to grants, in I think it was the year 2000, we initiated giving modest scholarships to high school students who were not necessarily identifying as LGBT, but who were doing work in their high school which was committed to ending homophobia in some form or another. And so since 2000, well, that's 2018, there have been high school students, sometimes 2, sometimes 5 per year, who received a $1,000 scholarship in recognition of their work, or sometimes depending on the year, the amount was slightly more. But between grants and scholarships, the Samara Foundation, now the Samara Fund, has really worked to try to support LGBT social change in the state of Vermont. I'm very pleased and proud that it continues through the Vermont Community Foundation.
And we've had Melissa Murray and also Dana Kaplan on the show. But as a founding member, how did you put it together with Outright in the early days? I believe it was 1989.
Well, you know, it's hard for people to remember, really, how different things were. There's been, I think, profound social change in Vermont during my lifetime, and during our lifetimes, really.
Right.
In 1989, there had not ever been a grant given to any organization in Vermont that I know of to work specifically to support LGBTQ youth. And I think you may have mentioned, but for a period of years I worked in community mental health. I eventually became the director of the counseling service of Addison County. Interestingly enough, Stan Baker, who went on to fame as the Baker of the Baker decision for marriage equality, Stan worked at the counseling service as well, along with several other colleagues, and along with several folks, LGBT folks who were at Trinity College and working in social services. We all recognized that there was a real need to do something specifically for the well-being of young people around LGBTQ issues. And of course, we weren't including the Q back then.
Right.
Queer hadn't yet emerged as the term of inclusion rather than derision. But working in mental health, we couldn't help but be aware that we had clients and young people we were aware of who were literally leading lives of despair because of the oppression
and isolation.
And despair and isolation, which was leading to suicidal ideation, and unfortunately the loss. We've lost too many young people to suicide. We've also lost too many LGBTQ young people and adults, but young people to the ravages of alcohol and drugs and other drugs, because alcohol is a drug. The oppression of the society around LGBTQ issues has had devastating effects for many individuals in our community. And by 1989, a number of us said, we must do something. And interestingly enough, a group of us, I think there may have been 10 of us, got together at the home of one of the 10 of us. Naomi Tannen actually was the head of youth and family services at the counseling service. She used to run an adolescent residential program in the Adirondacks. She still had her home there. We went and did a one-day retreat. We said, we're going to figure something out. We got there and we said, we're going to start a group committed to making change for LGBTQ youth. We didn't have any money. Of course we didn't have any staff, but we had a vision. And each of us there that day said, we made a commitment. We'll either give or raise $100 and we'll find 2 more people, since there were 10 of us, and then we need 2 more months. Vermont Cares had started by that time, which was the statewide, or at the time it was the only HIV/AIDS service organization. And I was serving on the board of Vermont Cares. Howdy Russell and I were both on the board of Vermont Cares, I think, at the time. He was one of the other founders of Outright. And they had one little room upstairs in their building, which they said they'd rent to us for $100 a month. So we made a commitment to each other. Okay, we're going to get or raise $100 each, and we'll find 2 more people, and we'll have a year's worth of rent for our one little room where we would put some books, and our fantasy was that maybe we could organize a support group. And that eventually started what's now called Friday Night Group, which has spread to different communities in the state of Vermont. But it was really our vision that there needed to be something to help support LGBTQ youth who were not getting support in schools, and many families were not supportive, and even families who wanted to be supportive didn't know where else to reach other people. So that was really the vision in 1989.
And it's exploded.
It's exploded. It also got attacked over the years because the prejudices and the stereotypes, particularly around gay men and young males, is vicious. We've been stereotyped as predatory. We've been confused with pedophilia over the years. And so in 2000, when we were doing the Civil Unions Initiative in the legislature, Outright Vermont was viciously attacked by the right-wing politics who were also attacking civil unions. But there was also a very real attack on Outright Vermont. It lost the little bit of funding that the state was giving to it. There were, as I remember, there were even some pickets outside, and we had to bring Outright up from being attacked several times. But now it continues to need support. And you mentioned when we were talking ahead of time, what can people do? Well, here's one of my fantasies. Can I just dive into that for a minute? One of my fantasies is that every LGBTQ person in Vermont will make a commitment to identify one LGBTQ nonprofit organization in the state of Vermont and make a commitment to either volunteer or make a donation to that. Outright Vermont, the Pride Center. There are a number of other organizations in Southern Vermont. There's organizations. And I think, frankly, if each person in our community stepped up and said, wow, I could probably give a modest contribution. It's almost like crowdfunding, crowdsourcing from our own community. I know because I work for the Foundation, Samara Fund, that many modest contributions make a huge difference. And that's one thing our community can do, because we always struggle financially to keep our organizations afloat.
And we also had Bennett Law on talking about the Vermont Fund.
Yes, the Vermont, yeah, absolutely. The Gay and Lesbian Fund of Vermont.
Right. Which is another avenue that people can explore. Do we have time to talk about the legislature?
Well, I can be happy to. I can briefly say that the Vermont legislature has, I was just talking with Keith Gosling just the other day. Independently,
Our co-host?
Keith and I were each, turned out, making a list of the various milestones in LGBTQ legislative history. And I don't think we have time to go through all that, but that alone would be well worth doing sometime.
Sure.
But I'll mention a bill that's in the legislature right now that was initiated in the House, and now it's in fact, I think it's up for action on Tuesday of this week, which I think by the time this is broadcasted will have been last week probably.
Right.
But we continue to have initiatives we need to take, despite having created civil unions, marriage equality, protections, employment protections, non-discrimination protections around transgender and gender identity. We, this year, are passing a bill which would direct every business or organization in the state of Vermont which has a single occupancy restroom to designate it without a gender on the door, so that it's clear that this is. They don't have to say it's gender free. It just has to say restroom.
Right. What a concept.
Yeah, what a concept. But we're trying to increase safe spaces for people of all identities to have a place where they can know that they can use the basic functions of a restroom. It also happens to appeal to women who are not LGBTQ, because in fact women often are standing in line outside their restroom while the men are coming and going. And for people, adults with a young child who want to simply use, I'm a father, I have a young daughter, I can go there and feel comfortable taking them in there. So that bill is passed the House and is up for action in the Senate. Last year, in the committee that I chair, which is the House Healthcare Committee, we initiated a bill which started by saying that mental health services should be available to young people, minors under the age of 18, without necessarily having to have parental permission or authorization.
Important. Yeah.
It's very important because it could be anything from, the parents are hostile, or it could be that, in fact, maybe there has been abuse within the family. And the young person, to get parental permission is not going to happen. So we passed that to the Senate with our support in the House for LGBTQ youth. When it got to the Senate, we spoke privately and said, let's expand that to all youth. And so it came back from the Senate to say all youth, not just LGBTQ youth. But key to passage were students from outright Vermont who came and testified. They've testified again this year for the bathroom bill. And so I think it's very exciting to have young people speak out of their own lived experience to help legislators understand why it's important to keep making changes in our schools, in this case, our restroom access. And we're not done.
I know.
There's so much more to do still, even though we've achieved many things here in Vermont.
What are your, in the 2 seconds we have left, what's your hope for the future?
My hope is that every student in every school and every teacher and administrator in every school who identifies as LGBTQ can come to school, feel free to be who they are, to be welcomed, to be celebrated, and to actually be able to include in the curriculum the proud history of LGBTQ people as well. And I think when we've achieved all that, it will be a marker for another layer of success.
Excellent. Well, it's been wonderful for you to come in. Thank you for coming. We hope to have you again because this conversation obviously has just begun.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo, Ian. That was a great interview.
He was great.
Yeah, he was fun.
He's very easy to interview.
So now do we have trivia?
Now we have trivia.
All right.
Christine Hallquist, first transgender woman to run for governor in the U.S. First transgender candidate for statewide office in Vermont?
No.
There was actually someone before her who in 2000 was the Republican candidate for the U.S. House. She lost to Bernie Sanders. 2002, she lost the Republican primary, again trying to run for the U.S. House. In 2006, she lost the Republican primary for Vermont State Attorney General. But in 2008, she was the Republican candidate for Vermont State Attorney General. In 2010, she was the Libertarian candidate for Attorney General. And it might be because she was an attorney whose name was Karen, who of interest, because in 1996, we didn't have all of the provisions in place for changing birth certificates, et cetera. She was able to marry her girlfriend, Mary Ashkenberg, who had been an instructor at the Vermont Law School. Conservative Republican, property rights advocate.
Not running anymore.
She's passed over in 2014.
Well, that was very informative, though.
It was. And now I guess we should wrap up the show for the night, right?
Shall we? Thank you
Okay.
for joining us. And in conclusion, we'd like to say, as we always do, resist.